Welcome to a special Can't Stop the Growth series, Win Your Mind, Win Your Market, powered by our friends at Chiirp. I'm Chad Peterman, and around here, we believe growth starts from the inside out. In this series, we're zeroing in on the one thing that drives everything else, mindset. Because how you think determines how you lead, and how you lead determines how far you will go. We've partnered with the Chiirp team, creators of the Win Your Mind, Win Your Market podcast, to bring you real conversations with leaders who've mastered their inner game and turned it into massive momentum. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, or just trying to get 1% better every day, this series is for you. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Win Your Mind, Win Your Market, the podcast where we dive deep into the mindset that drives business success. We believe that winning in business starts with winning in your mind. Every week, we bring you the biggest names in the home service space. Industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators who share their insights on how a winning mindset has shaped their journey to success. Get ready to explore the strategies, habits, and mental frameworks that can help you not only excel in your business, but dominate your market. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering the mental game of business. I'm Ryan Fenn with Judd. Let's get started, because when you win your mind, you win your market.
Welcome, everybody, to the Win Your Mind, Win Your Market podcast. My name is Judd. I'll be your host today. I'm really excited about this podcast today. We have a very special guest, one of the first people that came to my mind when we started this podcast. I've got Chad Peterman with me, CEO and founder of Peterman Brothers. Thanks a ton for coming on here, Chad.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be on here and talking about mindset and the role that it plays in my life, and I'm sure in a lot of other people's day to day on how they tackle challenges and continue to try to grow themselves and grow their companies.
Yeah, I wanted to bring Chad on when we started this. I've gotten to know Chad a little bit since I've been in the industry. Obviously, Chad is a big name in the industry, and we're finally here. So this is really cool to be able to do this. So Chad, talk to me a little bit about your upbringing. Where were you born? What was family life like? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. Have been here pretty much my whole life. I moved away for a couple of years after college and lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, but for the vast majority of my life, I've been here. My dad started our company back in '86, joined full-time in 2011. I was actually born just a couple of months after he officially started the company out of the back of our garage. So I've been around it my whole life. Didn't really have a huge interest in the trades. Growing up, obviously I saw dad working hard and, early mornings, late nights, weekends, whenever it was, taking a break to come to, mine or my brother's, games here and there. And, he coached us in a lot of things. I don't know how, having two little ones right now, I'm not sure how he found the time, but we're going to be navigating that. My kids haven't really started into the sports and different stuff like that. My daughter's played a little bit of soccer, but at a very, very low level to start off here. But yeah, so that's kind of how I grew up, is kind of seeing, the importance of hard work. I think as it relates to your podcast, where kind of my initial kind of thoughts on mindset, motivation, and different things like that were kind of bred watching my parents, seeing them, build a business together. They were in it together at the beginning. And then, my mom stayed home and did everything for me and my brother so that, dad could go to work and different stuff like that. That's kind of how I grew up around it. I have no real technical background. I never worked in the field or did anything like that, but have a ton of respect for the people that do. And we'll probably get into it, but I think that's been a lot of where my kind of mindset and leadership philosophy has come from, is that I don't have that background. And so when it comes to leadership and building trust with teams and different stuff like that, I had no other option because I didn't know how to do the work. And so I've really worked hard to kind of lean into what they do and how do we make that easier for them, and then how do we work together as a team to pull off serving customers on a day in, day out basis.
Yeah. So your dad started it in 86, is that right?
That is right. Yep.
So you were born so were you born in 88?
I was born in 86, November of 86.
Oh, November of 86. So you're 38 years old?
I'm 38. Yes.
Nice. I'm 41. How'd your dad get into it?
Yeah, so he was, my grandfather is actually an electrician and did a bunch of different stuff, back in the day. And my dad graduated from high school, and at the time, so he would have graduated high school, call it 1978. And at the time, he was doing a lot of like working. So high school at that time, like I think he said he went to high school for like the mornings when he was a junior or senior, and then would go out and do work and stuff like that. And there was a local technical school, it's called ITT, that was here in Indianapolis. And I think him and a few buddies decided like, hey, we're graduating from high school. I don't think college was really on their mind. It was like, hey, I don't really want to do this. If you talk to my dad, school, and him, like, yeah, whatever. I just went because I had to type thing. And so they started into trade school right out of high school. So went to trade school. I think he probably finished up around 1980 or something. For those of you older listeners, you'll know that there was a kind of a recession going on at the time. And so he tells the story, he was walking around, putting in applications, and people are like, well, we're really only hiring people with experience. And he's like, well, that's what I'm here to do, is to get said experience. And so luckily he found a local contractor here on the south side of Indianapolis that was willing to give him a shot, and had probably a very similar story to those guys that started in the field. It was, one day you're a maintenance tech, and then the next day the only service tech quit. And so you became the service tech. And that was kind of the training that he went through to go do it, and then started running service calls and did some install, did a little bit of everything. It was a small shop, so kind of all hands on deck, but that's kind of how he got into it. And then, around 86, decided, hey, I think I can do this on my own, and did a lot of early work with my grandfather in, rehabbing houses and just a little bit of everything. You called and said you need some HVAC work. He was jumping and was going to go figure it out.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned that you had a good work ethic instilled to you while you were growing up. Did you realize it at that time? Were you conscious that like, damn, my dad is instilling hard work into me and really kind of creating that as a value for me?
Yeah, I think as any young kid, right, we give very little credit to our parents. When you're growing up, you're 16, 17, they don't know anything, and you know everything, even into our early 20s, right? And so I would say that, sports played a big role for me when it came to kind of the hard work and, putting it in and all of that stuff. I played 3 sports in high school, played football in college, and that was always like big for me. Me and my brother both were involved in athletics from a very early age. I think that was supported by my parents. My dad coached me in a ton of stuff. And then, as you get into high school and, it becomes a little bit more serious and different stuff like that, the travel, all of that good stuff. I think it was reinforced by them. I remember a number of times where I didn't play real well or something like that. And it was my parents who didn't sugarcoat that. It was kind of like, hey, you didn't play real well out there. Like, what are we going to do to fix that? And I think that kind of a tough love, it wasn't like they were mean or anything, but they were real. When I had a good game, it was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Awesome work. All of this stuff. They weren't afraid to say, hey, you didn't play real well. And I kind of knew that. It wasn't like it was a surprise, like, oh, what are you talking about? And so I think just that background of athletics and team sport, and having, the blessing of having just a ton of great coaches throughout my life that, kind of instilled that, hey, you're going to work hard. You're going to do, we're going to work together as a team. And I think the other piece of it is, playing football. I wasn't the biggest kid out there. So I played with a lot of really good players who were a hell of a lot bigger than I was. I think my freshman year of high school, I probably weighed 105 pounds. So not your prototypical like football player, if you will. And so what I figured out real quickly is like, if I want to play, and I don't want to sit on the sidelines, I'm going to have to outwork some of these people. Like I'm going to have to get in the weight room. I'm going to have to figure out other means because I don't have maybe the physical gifts. I'm going to have to figure out another means to get on that field. And so that was always, being a leader in the off season and figuring out things that, I could get better at while maybe other people weren't working as hard or, just weren't bought into, whatever it may be. So that was where I kind of cut my teeth is being a leader. Is I wanted to contribute. I wanted to be on the field. And that was a big piece of how I was going to get there.
Can you remember having that kind of competitive drive your whole life?
Yeah. I mean, it's been there, wanting to win. I was fortunate enough to play on some really good teams too. So you kind of get that taste of what winning feels like. And that's something that's never left me. I remember, we had a very good high school football team. We won the state championship 3 years in a row in high school. And, going into college, when I started, it was like, well, like we want to win and there is no other way to do it. And so that was something I kind of battled in high school because it was, hey, our way worked prior. And I know this is a new team and a new program and all of that stuff, but like I was kind of hesitant to change, where I wish I would have been, more open to that change of like, hey, there's different philosophies, different ways of doing that. I eventually got it. And, led to a very successful college career. But yeah, in high school, that was kind of the thing. I mean, we had a great class and won a lot. And that was something that I always wanted a taste of, for sure.
That's really interesting when you talk about being on your high school team and how the whole mentality is like, we're going to win and we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And then you switch teams and there was a little bit of a different mindset there. One of the big things that I'm working on in 2025 is being a little more patient with people and trying to have a little more compassion and give people the benefit of the doubt, because I'm a passionate person and I want to win. And sometimes it can come across the wrong way. And sometimes people just aren't in the same space that I'm in. And really, ultimately, my goal is to bring people up. Like, I want to make people the best that I can. And unfortunately, because of my passion and I've been through a lot in life, man. I've been at the bottom of the bottom and I was able to overcome that stuff. And you would think that would make me super patient. It didn't. I have zero patience for like excuses, and I have zero tolerance for people that just like aren't doing whatever it takes to win. So that's something that I'm working on. But how did you kind of like when you switched teams and it was a little bit of a different mindset, you said that you were able to get that?
Yeah, I think one thing is just growing up, right? I mean, when you're 18, 19, I think there's a lot of growing up that happens in kind of those college years from 18 to 2, where you realize that your way is not always the best way and you don't have all the answers. And so I think that for me, what helped me get it was just kind of just seeing it, right? Like just understanding that the ingredients to success are all the same. They may be packaged a little bit differently, but the bedrock stuff of hard work, determination, overcoming adversity, like that's all the same. And so it doesn't really matter if they call it something different or they go about it a little bit differently. At the end of the day, we're trying to achieve the same result. And for me, that was kind of eye-opening. And I think it's just about experiencing different things, right? If you only know one thing, that's the only thing you know. You don't know what you don't know. And so for me, that was big. And then I think too is like in business, I feel like, not everybody, like in sports, people signed up to play because they wanted to play, right? You didn't sign up to play football because you had to. Whereas in life, everybody kind of has to have a job to a certain degree. So people are on your team for different reasons and have different skill sets, and some may not be as competitive or, driven like that. And I think that what I've seen over the course of kind of my business career is just meeting people where they are. You talk about it as patience. I think that's roughly the same thing is, I've got to understand what motivates this person. It may not be being the best of the best. That may be my motivation for sure. Maybe yours as well. But what actually drives each individual person? Maybe it's earning more time with their family. Maybe it's, whatever it is. There's a multitude of different reasons, but I think that especially in leadership goes to what is my mindset? Am I just going to be angry at everybody because they don't do it my way? That's one approach, and it probably works to a certain degree. You're going to beat your head up against a wall more times than not. I think that there is kind of setting the culture of the company, but I also think that that culture it can't be so zeroed in that, especially when you're in a business where your product is people, right? It's like, I've got to have people. So if I've got a really good plumber, but he's not, motivated by money or whatever the case may be, and he's motivated by something else, well, I've got to connect with him on that level. More than likely, I can still get a really good result, but I've just got to motivate him differently. And I think that that's important for leaders to understand, because so often we write people off because they don't do it our way.
Yeah.
And our way is not the only way. I mean, I know buddies who run hugely successful companies, and they run their company different than I do, because that's their personality and that's just how they are comfortable running it. And it makes for a really great company. I may run mine a little bit different than they, but okay, we still get to the same result.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I initially wanted to bring you on here is I get is it called a Monday morning email, or is it a Monday morning motivation? What's that called?
So I just send out kind of along the lines of, what I'm reading or what's inspired me over the last week, or maybe something I saw within the company that I want to address. And so I send out an email. I won't say every Monday because I have missed Mondays before, but I try every single Monday to send out an email. I sent one out this morning. It's kind of the way that I kind of get myself in the right mindset and hopefully get people on the team in that mindset as well.
What does your one this morning say? Should we read it?
Yeah, we can. It was all about quitting, and are you a quitter, and have you embraced quitting?
If you're not following Chad, I highly recommend it. Every time I read one of these, I'm like, here it is right here. They're badass. So, are you a quitter? Quitters have a bad reputation. This past Friday is actually recognized as National Quitters Day, honoring when most people quit their resolutions for the new year. Interesting. In a world of increasing demands, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. Anxiety is at an all-time high in the world. My belief is that we need to embrace quitting. We need to first identify the activities and habits that are not helping us become the best version of ourselves and quit. Of all the things you will do today, what are the things that you do out of comfort, but if you take a step back, don't contribute to your goals? I have a feeling you'll find a lot of things taking up your time and headspace. We all aspire to grow and develop at some level. Oftentimes our growth is stunted because we associate growth with quantity rather than quality. Growth is not about doing more with the same amount of time we had last year. It is about doing the most important things at a higher quality than before. What are the most important few things you need to focus on to see big results? Hint, these are going to be the things you don't want to do, but deep down, know they are the important ones. Quit all your distractions that are taking up your time or don't need to be done. Our habits got us to where we're at today. Intense focus on the most important habits is what will get us results in the future. We make room for this increased focus by shedding our current habits that don't serve the person we want to become. Damn.
Yeah, so I'm reading a book right now. It's by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. I would highly recommend all of their stuff, but it's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. The chapter was all about that this morning, and I just thought it was an interesting message because so oftentimes I feel like, especially in today's world, and I couldn't really, it's hard to encompass this in words. I'm not the greatest wordsmith in the world, but like anxiety is at an all-time high right now in the world. And I think it's because people have access to do so many more things so much faster. Like, I think AI is only going to increase the anxiety in the world because we can do things so much faster. And you think like, oh, I can do all of this stuff. But in their book, what they point out is that it's not about doing more. It's quality over quantity. And I think it's important for us as leaders, us as individuals, to really look at what are our goals and what are the few things. Well, it's kind of the 80-20 rule, right? They talk about it a lot in the book. It's like, what is the 20% of things that we can focus on increasing our quality? And what are the 80% of the other things that we can shed that we don't need to do? And I think one of the hardest things for me as a leader, and it goes back to the point about, that we were talking about earlier, is once we find something that works, it's really easy to like get comfortable with that, right? It's like, ooh, I developed a habit, and it's something that I haven't thought about as much as I probably should have. But, some of our habits we need to stop doing because it got us to a certain point, but we need to change that habit or do it differently or whatever the case may be. But we get caught up in developing all these habits, which it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that we may need to redirect our energy to doing something different. One great example for me is I used to get up at 3 a.m. and that was when I started my day. Yeah. It was because that was hard work and that's what I knew. And, I got up and I read and I, worked out and did all of this stuff. Well, what I learned was, and this was brought on by having kids and, having other routines that I need to get done in the morning. And so it was really hard for me to break away from that habit. Like it was a good one, right? It was like get up early, get stuff done. Like I felt really good. And what I had to understand was that like getting up at that early, than all of the other things that I had going on, because I started that back before I had kids. Well, that was really easy to do. I didn't have any other obligations. It was just get up and get going, get myself moving. And so what I've realized is that I can still do that stuff. I just have to maybe do it at a different time, or I've got to do it a little bit differently, because what I was realizing was that trying to squeeze all of that stuff in and then adding more stuff of getting the kids ready, getting them to school, getting them breakfast, getting their stuff ready, all of that was causing me to be a bad dad. And it was causing frustration for me in the morning when I couldn't get that stuff done. Like I couldn't get it all done. And then like a kid would wake up, earlier than expected. And I'd be like, you're ruining my routine. This is terrible. I hate you. Like all of these things were like rumbling around in my head. And I realized that, hey, this is a habit that I need to change. It's a good one, and I'd really like to do that. And there may be a day when I can go back to that particular habit, but I had to change it. And so that's just one example for me of like shedding what is probably a good habit and just repurposing it so that I could focus on the most important things in my life.
That's a really interesting thought, because a lot of times when you think about creating new habits, you think in terms of, all right, I'm going to go from a bad habit to a good habit. But you can have a good habit, but it's kind of along the lines of what got you here won't get you there. Talk to me, like, what did it take for you to like consciously realize, okay, like this was a good thing, but like it's not working now? Was there a specific point where you were like, all right, man, I got to change this? And what's your routine like now?
Yeah. So I think it just takes a lot of frustration, right? Because as humans, we want to fight against it so bad. Like, no, I need to do this. Like, this is important. Like, leave me alone. I want to do my thing. And, so I think it was just a lot of frustration was what eventually like said, like, you can either be frustrated the rest of your life and, less than, a dad that you want to be and all of this stuff. It's hard. It probably took me a year to like figure it out. Kind of a slow learner, I guess. But I think that was the big piece. My routine this morning, it just starts a little bit later, and I'm okay with not doing as much stuff as I used to do. So like journaling to my kids is very important. Well, I couldn't squeeze that in, so I just moved it to when I get to the office, that's when I do it. And so now, rather than trying to squeeze it in before I get there, I just do it first thing, which has been good. So I have my journal. It sits right on my desk. So I know when I sit down at my desk, that's the first thing that I do. Boom, done. So still get it accomplished during the day. It's just I do it at a different time. I think two is understanding the importance of sleep. That's something I've learned over the last couple of years is how important that is. Where it used to be when I was younger, it was like, oh, I'll run on 5 hours. I don't even care. Like, I'm crazy. Like, this is awesome. Like, look at me. And it was just like, no one gives a shit how much I slept or didn't sleep. So like, it doesn't need to be a point of like, celebration for me. If I get the sleep that I need, well, then that's good. So now I wake up probably call it 4:30 and try to get to the gym and work out. And what I've also understood as it relates to my workouts is that sometimes just walking for an hour is a good form of workout. Whereas, back in my younger days, it was like, you got to be lifting weights and getting after it and all of this stuff. Well, what I realized is that a walk is sometimes just as good. And I can listen to a podcast or listen to a book and, get stuff done. And it's like, yeah, I got what I needed to get done. I'm not training for a powerlifting competition or getting ready for a season. I just need to stay active and stay healthy. So that's okay. And that's still a good habit. It's just different And then it also allows me to get a workout in, get home, and then still take the time, because any of you with little kids know that they are not real observant to your schedule, or, hey, we need to boom, 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 knock these things out. And so what I learned was I'm going to get home and I'm going to allow myself a little bit more time for them to wake up and get all of their stuff. And what I realized is I have a lot better morning and they have a lot better morning if I'm not rushed and trying to just hammer them with, we need to go, we need to go, we need to go. It's like, just give yourself enough time and you can still get there on time and get everybody dropped off and all of those things. And you're not frustrated. You're being a better version of yourself. And so for me, that's kind of the changes that I've made that have worked really well.
Yeah. So I want to talk about something that you mentioned just a little while ago. Anxiety is at an all-time high, right? Everyone's talking anxiety these days, anxiety, depression. And I do agree that technology plays a huge role in that. But I was talking to Ryan Fenn, the owner here the other day, we were talking about this same subject. And one of the things that's interesting is even though technology definitely has a place in it, if you were to look back 50 years ago, it was talked about less. And don't get me wrong, like I'm a huge mental health proponent. I don't know if you know much about my story. I'm a recovered drug addict. I've been diagnosed with depression, ADHD, anxiety, all of it. And I just think that it's interesting, like the more we talk about stuff, the more power we give it. And it's just like everyone talks about how anxious they are these days and how depressed they are these days. One of the biggest things that like helped me like get a hold of that stuff was just movement. Just like getting up in the morning, like movement. If you want to get out of your head, you have to move into your body. And like you said, whether that's just a walk or whether that's working out, it's been one of the most, like, I genuinely believe that if we can get up early in the morning and move our body, it naturally alleviates some of the anxiety that we may have and some of the depression that we may have. And I just think people aren't moving their bodies as much as they should these days. And that's probably due to all of the technology stuff as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. And I think it's you shouldn't utilize technology to do far more than you ever could, because I think that just leads ultimately to us being anxious and, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff and this, that, and the other. It's like, how do I use it to allow myself to focus on the 20% of the stuff that I need to focus on? It's not trying to, well, I can focus on 50% of the stuff because of all the technology that I have. It's like, how do we use this to take care of some of the, smaller tasks or what have you that I don't have to deal with anymore or don't have to think about? It doesn't mean I'm doing more. It just means I can focus on the things that I need to focus on. And I think the movement piece to me is huge. I mean, I think anybody, if you can get up and do some sort of movement, you're going to feel better throughout the day. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some scientific research around it, but I just know I feel better. So I'm going to continue to do it. And yeah, I think that's hugely important. And it doesn't have to be crazy. Like, you don't have to go out and run 5 miles a morning. Like, if that's your thing, then keep doing your thing. But it can be very simple. And I think that, it's more so not about the, rigor with which you're putting yourself through, but more so just the consistency. Can I consistently do this? And they talk about in this book, or it may be another one, I can't remember. I think it's Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is referenced a lot in the 10X is easier than 2X. But he talks a lot about, like, if you're wanting to start something, like, start small. You don't need to commit to an hour a day. Maybe it's just 20 minutes. Probably most people have a dusty Peloton that's probably sitting at their house. Just hop on it and ride for 20 minutes. Yeah. And you don't have to, you don't have to go trying to set a personal record. You just got to get on there for 20 minutes and just move. Yeah. And then eventually you may say, hey, I want to challenge myself a little bit more. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do that, which is perfectly fine. But if it's something new for you, 20 minutes is better than 0. So you're moving in the right direction.
And the biggest way to gain confidence is to keep your word to yourself. And the quickest way to lose confidence is to not keep your word to yourself. And so even if it's something small to begin with, if you can be consistent with it, you'll naturally start to build up that confidence, and it'll help you, move to the next level.
We're very simple creatures, right? It's like, just give me something to accomplish. I always use, like, if I got a new goal, I always print off a calendar, and I just, every morning, if you did your thing, even if it's, hey, I want to walk for 20 minutes a day, or 10, I want to walk for 10 minutes a day. And then you mark that off, all of a sudden you can feel your brain wanting to wake up in the morning, and you're like, I want to make that X. I want to put that X on the day. Like, I want to knock that out. It's so stupid. It takes literally 5 seconds, but it makes you feel a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. So I've been working out for a while now. It's been important in my journey, but I was actually working out at nighttime, and then I switched to a morning workout routine probably like, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe like 8 months ago, something like that. Dude, it's been a game changer. Like, getting up in the morning and moving my body, like, I think the reason it makes you feel good is because it slows down your brain a little bit. Like, anytime you're focused on one thing, it naturally slows down your brain and releases some of those feel-good chemicals. But the other reason that I like it is when I show up to work in the morning, if there's a fire that I have to put out or some tough stuff that I walk into, it's so much easier to face that stuff when I've gotten up in the morning and I've gone and I've moved my body and I've like relaxed my brain a little bit, as opposed to like waking up, not really having a routine, getting into work, and then like coming into a stressful situation. That was so much harder to deal with when I wasn't in that routine of waking up in the morning and going and working out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I've always been a morning person, so it's a little bit easier for me to adopt that. But I always told myself, like, working out in the evening, like, there's so many things over the course of the day that could impact that makes it really easy for me to make an excuse as to why I couldn't get there. Whereas in the morning, I've got a hell of a lot more control over, I just got to get out of bed, get out of bed and make it there. And it's a little bit easier. And I think that's one of the things too. It's, when you're setting out to tackle a new habit, is understand all the triggers that may prevent you from doing that and work around those. So like, if it's, laying your stuff out before you go, if it's, hey, making sure that, I get to bed at a certain time so that I feel like getting out of bed. One big one for me that sounds silly is having a glass of water by my bed. If I can see the alarm, turn it off, and take a drink of water, it's amazing how much that wakes you up. I don't know why.
It's interesting.
But it does. But just simple things like that. So I know that if I'm going to make it up in the morning and do my thing, I got to get that glass of water there in the evening so that I can drink it and somehow weirdly feel awake. But all of those things, I think, are just little pieces of forming a habit to make it easier on yourself. Like, you don't have to make it super difficult. It's all about that consistency and continuing to work towards just becoming better over the long haul.
Yeah, man, this is good stuff. I have a lot of stuff I want to go over right now, and I realize we got like 15 minutes left. But how big is your company?
Yeah, so we've got, we just opened up another location. So we've got 11 locations across kind of Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky. And we'll go up into Michigan a little bit. We've got a location up in northern Indiana. But we've got right about 500 people here.
Is the roofing company you started, that's a different company, right?
Yeah, that's completely separate. Logo looks similar. And so we leverage some of our customer base and different stuff like that, just letting them know that, there's a company that's related that has a different service. So Peterman Brothers, myself, my brother, and my dad own that company. And then in the roofing company, it's myself and two partners that are outside of Peterman Brothers.
So you've got over 500 people. One of the questions I have is, you talked a little bit about how if you really want to bring people up and create a good culture, you have to figure out what's important to them and what their goals are. Like you mentioned, like, I love to win and I'm going to do whatever it takes to win and be the best. That might not be important to somebody else. How do you do something like that across a company that's 500 people big?
So it's hard. It was a lot easier when we were smaller and all in one building, and I saw everybody every day and all of that stuff, right? For me is, trying to get all of our leaders. So anybody, and when I say leader, it's basically anybody that has people reporting to them. So one of the big things that we have recently started back up that we kind of got away from kind of a growing pain, if you will, is our leadership training. So like if I'm going to expect to have better leaders within the company, I got to train them. I can't just expect them to get better because they get better. And so we do leadership training every Tuesday at 8:30. So anybody that has anybody reporting to them is required to come. And some of them, if they're at a different location or something, obviously they go virtual or whatever it may be. But we usually have our headquarters is in Indianapolis. So that's where the bulk of our leadership is. And so we'll have the room, probably 20, 30 people in there. And then obviously another, probably 20 virtually as well. But we do a lot of that training, and a lot of that focus is on one, making them better leaders, but then two, probably the biggest, kind of hill we stand on is meeting with your people. And so all of our leadership is required on kind of every other week-ish, depending on how many people they have, is to meet with your people, is to sit down and talk to them about their performance, about how life's going, about where we can help them, all of these things that I think is hugely important. The one-on-one meeting is where things are going to happen and where we're going to get things done. It's when we don't meet with our people that we are left wondering why they're leaving, why they're frustrated, what their issues are, all of that stuff. And so all of that to say, communication is critical. It's very difficult when you're spread out all across, here, there, and everywhere to keep that up. But we've put in a few things that I think are important. Our COO runs a town hall with all the field professionals every month. So we say, hey, what's broke? What can we fix? What are you frustrated about? What's not working? And then we take that and then we go work on it and get it fixed. And so I think that is hugely important when it comes to, even a smaller organization. It's just easier when you're smaller because, well, you could have a team meeting and you could put everybody in the same room. I can't. I don't have a room big enough. But that's okay. There's plenty of means to have a meeting and talk with people and to get kind of the vision broadcast across the company and let people know where the company's going and how they can contribute and be a part of that success.
So when you guys do your leadership trainings, do you guys take a training from like a certain course that you teach people on, or have you kind of created those trainings internally?
Yeah, so really internal. So I'll give you an example of what we've done. So one of my favorite books is John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And so I've just been teaching a chapter a week. Pretty simple. I read the chapter, I get notes, and then I sit up there and I talk and we just go over it. It's been really good. And then my COO takes some weeks and he'll do more like he did a whole intensive over like 2 weeks on how to have an effective one-on-one. And so like more tactical stuff is what he's kind of going over. And then I do more of the high level kind of leadership, mainly because that's just my kind of the stuff I do. One of the things that made me so proud is this morning, I was sitting in my office and our electrical manager came up to me and he's like, hey, I took your advice and I'm just spending 5 to 10 minutes every morning just reading this book. And it was a book. It's called First Break All the Rules. It's a fantastic book if you're a manager leading people. Like if we didn't have that training, he's not picking up a book. But it's that consistency with which we have the training and, hey, this isn't going away. It's not like a, hey, one-time deal. We are doing it every single week. In fact, last month, Christmas Eve was on a Tuesday, and we take Christmas Eve. We have a kind of a floating holiday now, but essentially it's a day off for a lot of people. And so we moved the training to Monday. We're like, we're not missing a week. We're holding strong 52 weeks, and we started early. So we're going to get more. It'll be like 52 weeks, probably in early November of this year. But I said, we're doing this every single week because it's my belief that a lot of leadership training is just consistency. It's not like you're going to take it because a lot of it's high level, like mindset stuff, right? And so you just need to be exposed to it on a weekly basis and just boom, 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 boom. It's not like, hey, you need to do A, B, and C. No, it's like, hey, you need to think about things like this. Or, hey, what if you approached a situation like this? And so my hope is that through consistent training, we're going to approach situations from that true leadership mindset. We're going to understand that, oh, shoot, this situation just came up. And weirdly enough, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how to handle this. So I'm going to handle it like that as opposed to how I would normally handle it. And let's see what the result is. And so that's kind of how we go about it. I'm a big believer in the consistency piece. And I think a lot of that is rooted in that there's no playbook to how to build one of these businesses. Like, yeah, you can talk to people and go visit shops and do all of this stuff, but there's still no playbook. building business is a lot of ad-libbing and figuring out what works and, different things like that, that I think it just has to be consistent. You've got to be consistently in that mindset if you're going to become a good leader, if you're going to build a great business, whatever it may be. It's just constant and it can't ever stop.
Yeah. Did you mention, that's really interesting actually, that there's not just like this playbook that anybody could follow. I think some of it comes down to, even though there's certain things that a company can do to be successful, I think you have to be authentic at the same time. Kind of like you talked about in the beginning when you were like, yeah, I know other business owners that run a different kind of company than I do, but they're super successful with it. I think a part of that is like you have to bring authenticity into your business. So you can have certain principles and certain strategies, principles, guidelines, or whatever, but at the end of the day, you still have to bring like some authenticity into what you're doing in order for it to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I've probably learned the most as it relates to mindset over the last couple of years is, when I first started in this business, it was a lot about how do I appear to my people like nothing phases me? I think that was a lot of the motivation of waking up that early, because I knew that none of them are waking up that early. And so it's like, hey, the leader is doing this, like follow my lead, do as I do. And what I learned over the last couple of years is, putting up that coat of armor and not showing, like, I think there's a level of, you've got to be that person that in a tough situation is kind of the guiding light and like, hey, we can figure this out and we can do all of these things. But I think there's also a piece of it is being vulnerable and being willing to share when maybe you're not at your best, when you're struggling with something. I think all of those things are critical into earning the trust of the people that you lead, because if you just appear that nothing ever phases you, well, it's really hard for people to relate to you.
It's hard for people that can somebody like that.
Yeah, it's like, well, okay, cool. Well, I guess they did it, but they don't have any struggles whatsoever. So maybe I can't do this and it's impossible. And it's like, no, man, I'm going through the same shit you're going through. Raising 2 little kids, trying to balance that, trying to be a good husband, trying to run the business. The demands are high, all of these things. Like, yeah, some days it sucks. And it's not super fun.
In for a minute, because I think most people on here probably know who Chad is. And it's so funny because I think in life, you tell yourself, man, if I get here, I'm going to have it all figured out. Or if I get here, it's all going to be figured out. But really, at the end of the day, we're always growing no matter where we're at. We could get to one level and it's just going to, the growing pains are just going to look differently. You talked about it. You've got 500 people. For a while, you stopped doing the leadership meeting or whatever, and you brought it back. But like, I just want people to understand that, like, even though you're running a badass business and you're super successful, you still have growing pains and you still have stuff that you're trying to figure out.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that this is just such a great, not cause, but like, I love what you're doing here, because I just think that, yes, so many people feel like, well, I just need to figure this thing out, man. It's like, it's a process. Like, I wasn't here on day one. I didn't even know what in the hell I was doing, but you slowly figure it out. And I'm not, I've never said I was the smartest guy. I'm willing to work hard and I'll go figure it out and I'll go, find things and we'll do all of that. But I think that goes back to the consistency piece. It's like, I've just been at it and just doing it. And we screw things up all the time. I mean, we're working on things right now that would probably surprise the hell out of people, because you're like, you don't have that figured out? It's like, no, we don't. We skipped over that step and we grew fast and we jacked it up, and now we're going back and we're fixing it and all of those things. And the hope would be, as you look and say, well, I think we got that thing figured out. Okay, great. You got that one figured out. Now what else can you go figure out? And so for me, it's been fun to kind of like, I've lived at all levels, right? We got 500. When I first started, there were 20 people here. So it's a totally different company than it is now. And you've got to grow yourself. And I think that's one thing that I learned very early on, is I need to be the leader of whatever it is that I want to achieve. And I think that whatever it is that I want to achieve is hugely important. I think so many times, especially in this industry, we look at all the guys who are running these massive companies and, oh my gosh, like, to your point, oh, they've got it all figured out and all of this stuff. But I think it's important to understand, is that what you truly want?
It comes with it. Yeah.
100%. Like, do you want to do that? For me, when I first started, so I'll tell you, I started in 2011. In about 2015 is when we decided, hey, we're going to start to grow this company. We're going to be a residential company focused on the trades, and this is what we're going to do. And at the time, the biggest, baddest companies out there in 2015 were probably like 30, 40 million. Like that was the, and I knew that that's where I wanted to be. And I was willing to do whatever it took to get to that level.
Is the reason you wanted there is because you knew other companies were there and it was that competitive like nature in you, or what made you tell yourself, I knew I wanted to get there?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of competitiveness, like, hey, I can do, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And it wasn't taken away from anything that they did. It was just like, hey, if I'm going to go at this, like, I'm going to go try to be the best. And then what I realized as we got there and then surpassed that and then kept growing is it really became less about the competitive, like, hey, I want to build the biggest company. It was the impact that we were having on the people in our company, our customers, but most importantly, the people that were at our company. Like, it became, early on, growth was probably for me and me alone, because there was probably a lot of heartache, like, oh yeah, like growth's good, we're going to get bigger. And like, at the end of the day, these people are probably looking at me like, yeah, I get it. It's good, but it's just causing a lot of headaches. And then what I started to realize was that growth was unlocking opportunities for people in our company. And if I look back at a lot of those people that were with us during the early days, and now they're doing something totally different, and, they've grown and they're making a lot more money than they, maybe ever thought possible. Like, that's what it became about. And so that's why I always say, it's like, you need to get clear on what it is that you want to do. Anybody that's like asking me for advice, I'm like, well, where do you want to go? Well, I haven't really thought about it. We just like to get bigger. I go, well, we need to clarify that, because my advice may be a little bit different based on where it is that you want to go. And that may change over time. It's changed for me. It started out here and then it's moved, and then, you're always moving the stick, but I knew the general direction of where we wanted to go. And so for me, whenever I'm talking to, business owners and stuff like that, it's always, well, where do you want to go? Have you taken the time to figure out where it is that you want to go? Because that's going to influence a lot of the decision. You may not need to do these 2 or 3 things that I'm doing if you don't want to get to that level. And that's perfectly fine. A lot of people run very good businesses that, maybe on paper don't look big, but they make a great living. They're happy where they are. They're comfortable, all of that stuff, which is 100% perfectly fine. Guess what? At the end of the day, no one's going to look back and say they were better than I. It doesn't matter. No one gives a shit. No one cares how big you grew your business. You just need to make sure it aligns with who you are, who you want to become, and then the people around you that you want to surround yourself with and that you want to help grow and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I'm just thinking in my mind, I'm thinking through the story of Chiirp. I remember when we were like, man, if we could just get to 1 million, we would have made it. We'll have made it if we could just, and then we get to 1 million. Then it's like, oh man, if we could just get to 3 million and then 5 million. And then, we catch ourselves looking back being like, man, how would it be just to be 4 people sitting in that tiny office again?
Yeah, it'd be a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, but it's fun at the same time, man, and it's helping us
Absolutely.
grow. Like I tell Ryan all the time, I'm like, man, the coolest part about growing Chiirp isn't like the money side of it. It's the stuff that I'm learning while growing this company is going to be able to help me out for the rest of my life. The lessons that I'm learning, going through all these different growing pains it's just going to help me for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
Well, awesome, man. I really appreciate you hopping on here today. This has been super, super cool. How can people get a hold of you or find you on like social media if they want to start following you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Fairly active on LinkedIn is where I kind of live. Facebook's nice. I'm not on it a ton, but yeah, LinkedIn, if you want to reach out there, you can always send me an email. So it's just chad@petermanhvac.com. If you got questions or want to ask me something or whatever it is, always open to help. The other thing that I'll point out is we have tours of our company. So we do a tour every other month. So if you're interested in that, just shoot me an email and we can get you set up on the tour. It's a full day we show you everything that we do. So you come in here to Indianapolis and we'll spend the whole day together, which is a lot of fun for me and getting to help out with people. Our next one is February. So yeah, if you're interested, just shoot me an email. Be more than happy to get you set up and meet you and share with you what we've done well and also what we haven't done well. And we can learn from each other.
That's really cool. Do you have a podcast as well?
Yeah, so I run a podcast called Can't Stop the Growth, and we talk a lot about the same stuff we're talking on here. We'll do interviews with leaders and different stuff like that. So yeah, if you want to check that out, you can find it on anywhere you download a podcast. But yeah, really enjoy doing that. We've been doing it now for, I think this is year 7, I think, that we've been doing it. So we've been at it a while. But yeah, we publish all the leadership training I was talking about is all published on the podcast. So if you want to if you're interested in doing leadership training with your team, feel free to take what I have on there and use it. That's the point of it.
Thanks, man. I like that name, Can't Stop the Growth. Did you come up with that?
I did back a while ago, but it's kind of stuck and we're rocking and rolling. So it's good.
Nice. Do you have a book too?
Yeah, I've written 2 books and now I released one last year. Have one's called Can't Stop the Growth. The other is called The Empowerment Project, which I released last year, which is all about how we empower our people to be at their best.
Super cool. Follow his podcast, Can't Stop the Growth. Look into his books. If you want to do a shop tour with him, you can email him. Again, I don't know Chad super well, but I have gotten to know him a little bit over the last year or two. And he's a genuine dude that's trying to help people. So thanks again, Chad, for coming on here. I really appreciate you taking your time out of the day to do this.
Absolutely, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity and thanks for what you're doing. I think the more of this information and content we get out there is only going to make our industry better.
Awesome, man. Have a great week.